Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's assembly. The date, of course, is the 6th of June. The photograph that you're looking at here was taken exactly 80 years ago, on the 6th of June 1944. It shows a British soldier wading ashore on the beaches of Normandy. This was called Operation Overlord, commonly known as D-Day. It remains the most significant event leading to the Allied victory in the Second World War, and I'm going to talk to you about it this morning. But first, a little background information. By 1944, the war had been going on for 5 long years. To put this into perspective, it is like us imagining the year before COVID, which is 2019. That seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? Britain fought with the Allied powers, which included the United States and the Soviet Union. The enemy were the Axis powers. This was Nazi Germany, Italy, and Japan. Between 1940 and 1942, Nazi Germany had conquered most of Europe, as you can see by the orange areas on this map. By 1944, the Russians were slowly pushing the Germans back in the east. However, for Germany to be defeated once and for all, there needed to be what's called a second front opened up in the west. After many months of deliberation, Allied planners decided that the invasion of Europe would take place here on the Normandy coastline in northern France. This was the plan. An armada of warships carrying tens of thousands of soldiers was to cross the English Channel from Portsmouth and storm the beaches of Normandy. Immediately prior to the storming of the beaches, paratroopers, that's to say soldiers jumping out of aircraft and using parachutes, would land in Normandy and prepare the ground for the Allied assault. On the night of the 5th of June 1944, the British Parachute Regiment landed in the eastern part of Normandy, near the city of Caen, and the American Airborne Divisions landed in the west, near to the Cotentin Peninsula. The airborne soldiers attacked German defences, disrupted communications and also supply lines, and they aimed to link up with the land invasion that was due to happen on the dawn of the 6th of June. Then, on the morning of the 6th of June, the land forces stormed the beaches of Normandy. They landed on 5 beaches, each with their own code name. American forces landed at Utah and Omaha Beach. British forces landed at Gold and Sword Beach. Canadian forces landed at Juno Beach. For the British, American and Canadian soldiers assaulting the beaches on the morning of the 6th of June, the situation was very chaotic. Landing craft often didn't make it as far as the beach, halting on a sandbar. Soldiers had to climb out of the landing craft and swim or wade to shore. Of course, while they were doing this, they faced a hail of gunfire from the German fortifications. When Hitler's armies had conquered France in 1940, he'd ordered the building of what became known as the Atlantic Wall. This was a series of fortifications up the western coast of France and then along the Normandy coastline, which Hitler regarded as his fortress Europe. The soldiers when they stormed the beaches, therefore had to contend with concrete fortifications, with German soldiers firing down upon them with machine guns, mortar fire and cannon. The soldier Donald Vaughan of the 79th Armoured Division later recalled the following. "There was an awful lot of noise going on, planes were going over, the Germans were firing, and there were big warships behind us firing 15-inch shells over the top. I'd never heard them before, and they sounded like locomotives going through the air." Another soldier, T. Tateson from the Green Howards, said the following. "The assault landing craft held about 30 men tightly packed. They were low-lying, flattish boats, and we were seated so that our heads were below the level of the gunwale. We were ordered to keep our heads down as we approached the coast to avoid enemy fire. However, our landing craft was disabled by some underwater mine or obstacle and became impossible to steer. One of the other boats was brought alongside, and although it was already fully loaded with a similar number of men, we had to clamber aboard and abandon our boat. We were now exposed to enemy fire, as well as being grossly overloaded." What I think is most striking about D-Day is the sheer scale of the operation. Look at this infographic. There were over 150,000 soldiers, over 6,000 ships, and over 10,000 aircraft. It's the largest invasion force in history. And 1066 pales in comparison. Now, I mention that because you all know about 1066, and it's of course the same part of the world, isn't it? Albeit the invasion force back in the 11th century was going in the opposite direction. And of course, what also makes D-Day significant is that it hastened the end of the war. The Second World War in Europe ended less than a year after D-Day happened, on the 8th of May 1945. And here you can see a street party in Bolton, in Horwich. These are people celebrating the end of the war. So having secured their bridgehead in Normandy back in June 44, the Allied armies pushed through France, pushed through Belgium, Holland, and eventually into Germany. Paris was liberated on the 25th of August 1944, and as I mentioned, the war in Europe ended on the 8th of May 1945. Now, yesterday and today, veterans of Operation Overlord have been involved in commemorations both in the UK and in Normandy. Of course, it's the 80th anniversary of Operation Overlord, of D-Day, and if we assume that most of the soldiers on that day were at least 18 years old, that would mean that the youngest veterans today will be 98 years old. And indeed, a large number of veterans have passed their 100th birthday. Now, what this means is that commemorations like this take on a level of poignancy, given the fact that in the next decade or so, sadly, we will come to a point where there are no more veterans of the Second World War who are still with us. Therefore, it is so important that we cherish these people, honour their sacrifice, and learn as much as we can from them while they are still with us. Finally, if you would like to know more about D-Day, there are some really excellent resources on the BBC website, and I have sent some links to your form tutors so that they might share those with you. My own form have been watching the BBC Newsround special on D-Day this week. It's no exaggeration to say that we owe our freedoms and our very way of life to the people who stormed the beaches of Normandy in the not too distant past. And I hope that this is something that you will take with you today when you reflect on the huge events of Operation Overlord on the 6th of June 1944. Thank you and have a good day.